Hey, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. Because this is really good on my nerves, and I feel like, and it's a really, really serious issue that I didn't really know till now. So you know the whole thing that's happened with the Western Rite people, and sometimes they go a little too far, right?
Are you talking about like the devotions of Sacred Heart and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, but I found out something that they're doing that's even worse than that.
What's that?
I actually found out, and I actually got into a heated argument with much of the Western Rite bros over this, and I'm not going to back down from this on this because they're actually defending a formal heresy. I didn't know this, but the supposed Antiochian Benedictine Skeet out in Colorado, they wrote a liturgical calendar recognizing Holy Roman Emperor Henry II of Germany as an Orthodox saint. The reason why that's so bad is before he was Holy Roman Emperor, he was the king of Italy who deposed Pope John Filgato and replaced him with a pope that officially added the filioque to the creed in Rome, which is why Constantinople broke communion with Rome in the first place, removed Rome from the diptychs. And they're trying to defend him. They're claiming Rocor, based on some weird document called Heinrich or Henry II Blessed, that St. John Maximowitz venerated him just because apparently he called him blessed. And I've been arguing with them for a while this because I don't think they realize how serious the implications are of saying the guy who forced Rome to add the filioque to the creed as an Orthodox saint that literally at the time violated canon law of the Photian Council, which at that time, Rome recognized as an ecumenical council. And I think this shows like this is a serious issue, and it's not just happening online. I mean, if there's an actual skeet in the Antiochian Archdiocese.
Well, I don't know about. Is that the one that's like two people? Like, it's a Western Rite monastery in Colorado with like two people in it, and aren't they the ones that sell you the title brother?
I think so. Yeah, it's
Okay.
Colorado.
Well, I've heard some people on the internet who go by the title brother might have bought that title from a two-person monastery.
Yeah, but you see what I mean though about the venerating.
Yeah.
And honestly, like it feels like this is. I mean, you've dealt with this recently. It's starting to seem like a lot of the Western Rite stuff is spiraling.
Yeah, I think that the problem with the Western Rite is that they don't typically get good energies, doctrine, right, teaching. So if they don't get a really good solid doctrination in essence energy distinction, and the stuff that we always harp on, they tend to just default to Augustine never says anything wrong, and we totally agree with everything he says. And by the way, maybe the church fathers never said anything wrong. They just adopt these really dumb positions because they don't get good catechesis, and so that's definitely a danger that has
another issue too. Like in further debates and argumentation, some of them were even trying to claim that Vladimir Lovsky and a lot of Orthodox scholars said that Thomism isn't completely incompatible with Orthodox theology. So
no, he has a book. He has a book and a chapter on how it's not compatible. So, yeah, they're just obsessed with. They think that the way to fix the problems is to try to come up with a new position, that a supra position that will reconcile them. When that's not what's needed, because the Orthodox position is already the correct position. You don't have to invent some higher third position to reconcile them.
Yeah, and even some of the Western Rite priests too, like that Father Patrick Harding and stuff, who defends using organs and instruments in the liturgy. He said in that interview with Gospel Simplicity that the West didn't really become heterodox until like Vatican I. He basically said like up till recently, only until they did papal infallibility and expanded the authority of the Pope, and it completely ignores all the metaphysics and the triology.
Yeah, I think they're just speaking, not knowing that stuff. And a lot of the Western Rite people are like super adept at history, so I give them points because they'll go like super into history and they're great at that. And many of those guys know a lot more about medieval church history than me. But again, the issues at stake here aren't primarily historical, and that's the problem, right? It's a lot of people go into this issue, and I'm not against the Western Rite. I'm against the problems that pop up there. And it seems to be more prevalent in the Antiochian version of Western Rite. But to me, it looks like they will just sort of go into that because they went to the Latin Mass or they were Anglican or whatever, and they think, oh, I can just do this, and then I'll keep all of my Latin presuppositions theologically. But the problem between the East and the West is not primarily a historical problem. It's not primarily resolved by disputes about, historical texts and books about Photius and Michael Paleologus. And those things matter. They're important. But it's really ultimately about the Trinity and Christology. That's the dispute. And if they don't get that, then that's the source of all these problems. And most of the people that I've seen leave Orthodoxy to go to Rome, many of them, I would say about 6, I can think of about 6, at least 3 or 4 of them were in the Western Rite. And so they just went into that anyway. And that's because they think they know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the theology. I mean, I did 8 hours of lectures on Augustine's teaching to show, yes, he teaches inherited guilt. He teaches it in many places. Yes, he's influenced by Platonic ideas. Yes, he is wrong in many theological things. He teaches the Filioque clear as day and on the Trinity. And none of the people who spew and spit nonsense at me ever even touch the theological issues. All they want to do is talk about how I'm a bad person. They won't touch the 8 hours of lectures that I did on it. Anyway, but I agree with you, Paisios. But I don't know specifically about this person that you're talking about, the Henry II or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'm not doubting you. I just don't know about that issue.
Well, yeah, he was the king of Germany,
right?
Or he was the Holy Roman Emperor when he was king of Italy. Forced the Vatican to officially have the Filioque to the Creed. So he's a formal heretic, but these guys are calling him a saint.
Yeah, I mean, just because a person in Rocor said somebody was blessed, that's not enough to necessarily say, oh, well, therefore, I mean. Again, a lot of these people seem to act like they seem to think that a saint can't make a mistake or an error or say something wrong. I mean, I'm not sure where they get this. I mean, saints make mistakes; they're not infallible. So, just a lot of mentally ill people too in the so-called Orthodox world. But anything else?
Yeah, I would just want to address that because honestly, it's almost becoming like what Hill and Brown are doing. It just adopt all these Western presuppositions and everything will just turn out fine.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it's not. It might be okay, but it's not going to be the solution to fixing the East and the West or whatever. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it because I was in the same position when I was a trad Catholic, and I remember going to the Latin Mass and then going to the Orthodox liturgy for the first time in 2007, and I thought, and I'd heard of Western Rite, but I mean, I didn't have that anywhere near me. But if I had just gone from trad Latin Mass to the Western Rite, I mean, I might have been okay, but I would not have gotten confronted with and challenged by a lot of the false Latin theological problems that I needed to be healed from. That's the problem here, is that people that go into the Western Rite, not always, but in many cases, don't get healed from the false phrenoma of the Latin theology that they need. That was my main problem. That's why I for so long didn't become Orthodox. I needed to have a lot of that healed and to work through that. And if you just dive into from trad Catholicism or Anglicanism into the Western Rite, a lot of people don't. They'll fall out of Orthodoxy within a few years.
Another thing too that bothers me about this is they end up denying the full Catholicity of the Byzantine Rite because they just assume it's all just Eastern fathers. No, like there was a lot of Western fathers that contributed to the Byzantine Rite. I mean, the liturgy of the pre-sanctified gifts, that is a abbreviated version of the Gregorian Mass.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a great point.
And a lot of it too, the way they go about sort of reconstructing, Western Orthodoxy. It's like it's following this sort of Anglo-Catholicism model of the 19th century of just reconstructing based on all these various texts and historical studies.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, it's okay if they try to do that and the bishops approve it. It's just that, like, if you don't get the right essence, energy, distinction thing down, you're going to be tempted to go to Rome. And that's the hinge upon so much of what this stuff hinges on. I mean, Augustine doesn't have that. He doesn't have the essence, energy, distinction. He doesn't have uncreated grace. He has the Filioque. And so they will just default into thinking, as the disputes of 3 weeks ago, the stupid Twitter disputes, which the people arguing had no idea what they're talking about. Of course, Augustine teaches inherited guilt and original sin. And they'll say, oh, we teach the same thing as Augustine. It's the same doctrine. It's the same thing. No, it's not. We don't believe in inherited guilt. and he taught that. So good points, Paisios.
That's why I said, that's why I told someone, it's like, okay, if you guys are going to adopt all these post-schism innovations and stuff, then you have no place going and accusing the Greeks of being ecumenist. It's like, you guys are literally changing liturgical practice to move
Right. Well, a lot of people, yeah, I've never been to an Antiochian Western Rite church, and so I'm not knocking all those people, but all I've ever heard of criticisms is that it's ecumenist from back all the way back to 2007 when I first heard about it. Oh, that's ecumenist. So, yeah, that seems to be the ethos from which the Antiochian Western Rite springs. So.
Yeah, and I think eventually the Antiochian Archdiocese will do what Rocor did at the end of the 20th century after a big group of their Western Rite people actually ended up schisming because they wanted to keep all their innovations, and Rocor said no, and so they left. So Rocor realized that, Sneck talks about this all the time in France.
Yeah, it happened in France, didn't it?
Reconstructionist Gallicanism.
Yeah.
Who are now schismatics.
Yeah, there was a schism in France over this, exactly that Sneck talks about.
Yeah, so I don't know, like you said, I'm not opposed to the idea, but there has to be, we have to approach it from the full theological consensus patrum, not just these historical reconstructions.
Well, and it's not just the ancient consensus patrum, it's also the theology that is dogmatized at the later councils and in the medieval Palamite councils, right? That's clearly not the Latin theology. So, that should seal the deal and the case closed. So, if we're Orthodox, that's not up for dispute anymore.
Yeah, but it's actually gotten so bad in the Antiochian Archdiocese, because I'm Antiochian. I've heard a priest even say that he thinks the Orthodox Church allows using leavened bread now because we accept Western Rite. Unleavened. He thinks, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate, but thank you for those questions. Yeah, I agree with you on that.